of the TWG Subcommittee on December 3rd, 2025 to order. Let's begin with roll call and confirm that we have a quorum present. I'm not sure we do, to proceed with tonight's agenda. Diane, will you proceed with the roll call, please?
Thank you. Sorry. City of Half Moon Bay, absent. City of Brisbane, absent. City of Millbrae,
Stephen Rinaldi, present.
City of Redwood City, absent. And City of Hillsborough,
Christine Krolik, present.
and we currently do not have quorum.
Okay, but we can open public comment. So we have some folks online. If this is the time on the agenda for members of the public to address the subcommittee on matters not listed on tonight's agenda. Please remember that each speaker is limited to 2 minutes, and the subcommittee, we can't take action on items raised during public comment. Diane, do we have any members of the public who would like to make a public comment on a non-agenda item?
Yes, we have one member on Zoom that has their hands raised, Miss Darlene Yapley.
All right.
Miss Yapley, you will have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
The Aviation Noise and Emissions Symposium is March 9th through 11th in Las Vegas. It includes a strong focus on advanced air mobility. A first-time 3-hour training will cover some of the questions raised at the last TWG, including what communities can do, what decisions can they make, and how can they be included. It also covers the different roles of local cities, airports, and FAA, who determines procedures, required environmental review, about the different types of AAM, etc. It's a fast way to get up to speed on the latest. Additionally, there are 4 AAM panels at the general session: drones, an airport sharing drone practices and considerations, a consultant on drone package delivery, and a lawyer on the latest regulations. The evolving airspace, how national airspace management may evolve to include eVTOL, drones, and supersonic. AAM in action, Port Authority, New York, New Jersey, on their AAM plans for JFK and LaGuardia. Dallas-Fort Worth on AAM and the World Cup, and a consultant who oversees an index on AAM reality and infrastructure who assesses manufacturers' and vertiport readiness. There's also a AAM impacts with NASA's recent research on AAM noise, the City of Orlando's framework for local environmental review approval, and a community member on lived experience impacts that should be incorporated into environmental reviews. For the training and panels, there's an opportunity to ask questions, and if interested, there's a sponsorship option for the training that would allow the entire roundtable members of their communities to attend. Please consider attending. At a minimum, I encourage Vanessa, as the symposium will provide useful information for the AAM study, as well as potential speaker ideas and topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you.
Darlene actually emailed us about this symposium, and we encouraged her to make this announcement. So we hope that any interested members of the roundtable or staff can attend, and we're hoping that Vanessa can attend. So thank you very much for that information. Are there any other hands
Yes.
raised for non-agenda?
Yes, we have one in the room, Miss Schneider.
Welcome, Ms. Snyder. This is non-agenda items.
My bad. The study came out, but there's never been a chance to actually go into great detail of what those results were, and I couldn't be at the June meeting because I had surgery on that day. So does this group plan on having a meeting that is less formal, where people can sit down and look at those studies and talk about potential outcomes? And I'll be quite honest, specifically for Millbrae, as we are the city most impacted by the 2 runway, 1 left and right, but it could include Burlingame. I don't really care who it includes, but to really talk about low frequency noise and changes to it, especially during the night time frame on that. If this isn't something that the roundtable sees that it can do, And not in this structure where you only have 3 minutes to talk, but in a chance where you can actually discuss with the members of the public, with people like Darlene Yapley, who would be great to have her and a couple of the other Palo Altans who understand this, and be able to dive into the details from what we do to protect our people. And if the roundtable can't do it, my request will be to the City of Millbrae to hold a group where we can talk, not under strict formal meeting assignments on that. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Schneider.
Thank you. There are no other public comments at this time.
Quick
All
comment
right.
to the chair.
Yes.
Would it be possible to have SFO Roundtable staff with a working group to send us the information from Ms. Yapley regarding that event on March 9th? Because
Yeah.
that'd be something that I'd potentially be interested in attending.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we are going to close public comment for non-agenda items, and we'll move on to an introduction. The focus of tonight's meeting will be the continued review of the Fly Quiet program, and we're launching a new, more structured approach to how the Roundtable handles its review of the Fly Quiet program. Rather than trying to address the entire program in one sitting, we'll be breaking it up into specific components and reviewing each section in depth during future TWG meetings. This format allows us to take a deep dive into every element of the program to better understand the technical framework and to thoughtfully consider opportunities for improvement. Also, because the technical working group, which is TWG, meetings are open to the public, this approach also expands opportunities for community participation. It provides space for more focused technical conversations and gives community members the chance to engage in the process in a more collaborative setting. So at our last full roundtable meeting, we heard a presentation about how comparative airports structured their Fly Quiet programs. Tonight, we'll be focusing on our own program metrics and how those metrics are scored today. We'll also be introduced to 5 new proposed performance categories developed in partnership with SFO's consultant, many of which reflect long-standing roundtable concerns. This will help set the stage for future meetings as we continue to review and discuss updates to the existing program. I will also be presenting a high-level recap of the discussion at the full roundtable meeting later on. So now we will turn things over to Bert and I.
Bert, do you want to talk directly into the microphone? Yeah.
Trust me, it wasn't that exciting. It was me talking to myself about making things bigger. Okay, so now that we're full size on the screen, let's go ahead and share it. All right, so back in June, we went ahead and delved into our current Fly Quiet program as it sits today. For anybody who has cared to look, we are updated on our website with all of our Fly Quiet reports. It's a great deal of effort, but we finally got there. So, now that we are there, this is the summary page. I was asked to talk about how we scored, how things were originated, and where we are now. So we have 6 categories and a summary report. The summary report is your cover page, which has all of them in it and shows what's going on. In this summary report, the top airline is Zip Air. We have a fleet noise quality on them. We have a noise exceedance on them, which both are quite high. We don't have a nighttime runway use, and we don't have a shoreline departure for them. We do have gap departure, and then we do not have an arrival Foster City for them. So they are actually offset or coming in quite well. The tally across the board is if an airline does fly that section, or obviously has an aircraft for the aircraft fleet noise, they will have a score. If they don't have a score, it won't count against them. They just run the tally across the board. So you don't have to compete in all categories to get there to be at the top of the heap, as you can see with Zip Air there. Now, going across is 0 to 10, 10 being the maximum. We have noticed in the past where we presented top 5, bottom 5, there will be a little juggling juxtaposition of characters at the top and the bottom. The bottom characters tend to stay the same, they just rotate a little bit. And then if somebody does something dramatic, we'll see a big change and they will come out of the bottom, move up a bit. Best example of that, I gave the example last time, was Qantas, where they typically fly in a, well, used to be a 747-400, louder aircraft, and then they flew out late at night out the gap, a loud aircraft, and so they scored poorly. And that was the only flight they had, one in, one out, every day. And then one summer, they had the idea of, instead of leaving the aircraft parked on the ramp all day, they would fly it up to Vancouver and then bring it back. That scored very well because they were able to have a daytime departure versus a nighttime departure, which balanced the two out. And we noticed that they were able to get the most improved that year. So it was kind of interesting to see. We actually worked with other airlines explaining that, and we've used that example many times. So without wasting a whole lot of time, so you can see the new, this is our fleet noise quality. Again, we take the airlines fleet they operate here in the United States. We're looking at all the different aircraft types. It's a lot of mathematical calculations involved there, and then we compare it to what aircraft types they bring into SFO. So if they're using the louder aircraft elsewhere and the quieter aircraft at SFO, they will score quite well. And you'll also see the low number for the airline nationwide score, or just the opposite if they're doing the opposite. Our noise exceedance rating. The noise monitors closest to the airport and under the gap departure are the ones that receive the loudest ratings, and those are the blue that you're looking at. And then it kind of goes out in like a bullseye. The further out you get, the quieter it is. We have day and night. You can see the differences there by 10 decibel difference. And we count those against the aircraft for what they're operating and how many sites they ring the bell, so to say, as they go out on a departure or in on an arrival or around on a departure for this day. The typical foreign flag carriers and U.S. carriers that are heavy going trans-Pacific will ring the bell at Site 1, 4, 6, sometimes 14, 17, 18, and 19. It's kind of typical. So you can see it adds up fairly quickly on a single flight. They will actually get quite a few counts against them. This is our nighttime preferential runway use. We're looking at runways 10 left and right, which means lining up for departure out here on the west side of the airport and heading east towards the bay. So that's preferred, particularly at night. Next would be a right turn on a 28 right. We used to call that a shoreline departure. Nowadays it's called the truck-in or the night. The next preferred would be a runway 1 departure out towards Oakland over the bay, north, going this direction. And then least preferred would be a straight out gap departure to the west. And you can see the points there. So you got 3, 2, 1, and 0. Question?
Could you just talk a little bit about the stick nighttime departures?
Stick nighttime departure is going to be a runway 1 departure. And it will go out over the bay, turn left towards Brisbane, come back down, and go south. The preferential on that one, and it's not scored here, is what's called a night departure. We ask that the airlines between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. use a night departure, so they'll go up towards Alcatraz, out towards the Golden Gate Bridge, out offshore towards a waypoint called Gobs, and then come south. Back over the peninsula, they'll be approximately 6,000 to 8,000 feet higher, and so quieter. Another one that we're trying to push is not a charted procedure, but it's called a 050 heading departure. It uses runways 1, depart over the bay, turns right, and either heads east or southeast. And so that's another one, and it saves the airline air miles. The airlines don't like the night because it adds about 25 air miles to go all the way out the Golden Gate Bridge and come back around. That's one reason why they like the stick. It's nice, tight, and comes out around. Conversely, the folks on the peninsula don't like it. It's noisy at night. And so we're trying to sell them on the 050 and see if they'll bite. And some of the airlines actually are biting. So we're going to keep that sales pitch up. But anyway, not within our current Fly Quiet program. Any further questions on that one?
So the preferred stick departure is not part of the Fly Quiet program? Did you just-
Well, if you take a stick, and it's not 1 a.m. to 5 a.m., that would get you 1 point. Whereas you could do a 10 departure and get 3 points. You could do a 28 right or left and then make a tight right turn to stay back over the bay. That'll get you 2 points. So there are ways to score points and do well. Next one, here we are talking about the former shoreline departure, now known as the truckin' or the night. You can see in the green there, as long as you stay inside of Highway 101, you actually score pretty well. If you take it over the pink area, you'll score marginally there. Let's see if I can move this a bit. And then that'll score you 1 point. And then if you come out here in the red area, you can see one out here went all the way up here before it went back over. Those score poorly, and that gets you 0 points. So you'll be in the basement as far as your score on that operation. The most difficult for us is our gap departure rating behind the fleet noise quality. And that's because we are measuring at 4 different gates. And a gate, if you imagine a curtain in space and where the aircraft perforates that, kind of like a scattergram if you did that when you're in school. And so we're looking for higher is better, basically. And if you're flying domestic versus international, the aircraft's going to be heavier, won't perform as well, and it'll be lower because of the weight of the aircraft. So you can see here a 747-400 domestic, and we probably should pick another aircraft right now because there are none. But this is our example we grabbed at the time. But an international one's going to be much flatter and lower altitudes at each gate. The domestic one will be higher at each gate and will score better. But we compare each separately. So we group the international 747-400s and we group the domestic 747-400s. And then we do the same for each aircraft type that an airline operates. And then we add that tally up for them. at each gate all the way down. So there's a lot of math involved, but that's how it's done. And you can see they're going to get the full 2 points for a good, the average departure will get you 1, and then the poor will get you 0. And here we're looking at the scattergram that I talked about earlier. You can see where most of the airlines kind of lie in that mid-ground. We have a few that are scoring well, and then mid-ground below the mid-range is the poor, and we have that populated as well. The Foster City arrival, that's one that we try to make sure at nighttime between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. that the aircraft are offshore. They'll score better. They get 2 points for good on an offset arrival. And we have a marginal of 1 point, which is straight in, right along the shoreline there. And then anything over Foster City will score poor. They were named for John C. Long, my predecessor, and he helped get this in with the Roundtable at their request to be able to score. And we used to award under his name for the trophies. Are there any questions based on what we have been doing up through now?
Thank you, Bert. I just want to turn things over to Terry O'Connell, who's here now. I understand the traffic was terrible tonight, and also for Diane to note that we also have Paul here, Paul Gould.
Now I'm on. Yes, and I want to apologize. I had no idea it was going to take me an hour to go the 10 miles or 8 miles from home to here. Yes, please go ahead with your question.
Can you hear me okay, by the way?
You probably want your mic on.
Try this one, better?
Yes, sir.
Could you talk a little bit about the gates? So these gates, concentric circles, these curtains from the airport, is that how it works, and how far apart are they?
No, it's truly a gate is much like holding a sheet of paper or a sheet out there and allowing the aircraft to punch through it. And so we establish those at 1 mile increments.
1 mile.
Starting at the runway brake release point. You can see that, barely see a 0 here, but that's brake release. And so that we count 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. Our first gate's at 3 miles, so that'd be off airport property. And the 4th gate is just before the shore.
Got it. I just wondered the distance of these gates to get
Yes,
up to those
definitely.
altitudes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for Bert about this?
So I just have, so the presentation that we have printed was different than the one that you just showed. Are we
This
moving
was,
in?
like I said, this is jumping back to June. I was
Okay,
told
got it.
to
Thank
show how things have been done up till now. Right, this is where we are now. And if you
Thank you.
would like to, we can answer any last questions and then jump over to where we're talking about going.
Please.
Okay? I'll minimize that. And I will go ahead and get our current fly quiet going. So, ooh. Just one moment. Oh, here we go. Whew. Said my file disappeared. All right, so we worked with our vendors, we worked with our consultants, and we decided that we would try to update the Fly Quiet. It's the old ones. It's adequate. It does what it was supposed to do. I know a lot of the roundtable members wanted to see things happen, motion, change. And some of it, you're just not going to get it. Gene can back me up on this one that, you know, late night operating cargo carrier is going to be always at the bottom of the well. That's all there is to it. They operate older aircraft. They operate late at night. They tend to go out on the area where there's lots of noise monitors and they get picked up. That's just all there is to it. We can work with them to improve a little bit, and many times they do, but it's a little bit. So we went ahead and took quite a bit of time looking at our data, coming up with our queries, things like that. We looked at, for this presentation we're doing tonight, 24 random days and 2025 data set. All of our procedural queries were run and checked against the appropriate standard instrument departures and standard terminal arrival routes. Those are published procedures for arrivals and departures. If you'd like to, you can go to websites such as airnow.com, punch in SFO, and go to the bottom of the page, and you'll see the SIDS and stars both listed there. So we, based on our queries and everything else, we put in the ability to generate tags. And a tag is, if an airline did this, then you will get notification. A tag is a notification. And we use those to check against our methodology. The operations for each day were then visually checked, flight by flight, and looking at the operations, trying to see if we had all the SIDS and stars caught, and or going through the appropriate zones or gates. A zone is a, best way to explain it is a geographic area. So if we were to, like for the Foster City noise procedure, or even San Francisco, we have meticulously gone around the profile of each city on the peninsula and created a zone for it. So we can turn on and off the zones. We can turn on and off the zones for the counties as well. And those allow us to capture flights that flew through, over, or around cities, things like that. And the data proved to have no anomalies for us. So the procedure you're seeing on the screen there, where they would depart on a gap departure, go along the shoreline, and then go over the Golden Gate Bridge to go northeast or east, is called the Santana. Yes, the air traffic controllers that designed these were Grateful Dead fans. And if you look at the waypoints along here, you will see Moji and things like that, and quite a few other Deadhead symbols. So they were Deadhead fans. And then the ones that go south, or east rather, were Giants fans, because we have the Say Hey departure, things like that. So it's interesting to see how they come through with these. But, well, I mean, gosh, stick and candlestick, I mean, they do it all over. But anyway, so what we wanted to do was make sure that anybody assigned the Santana was not cutting across the city of San Francisco. And so that one flight that you see there on the very western peninsula, piece of the peninsula, I should say, would have been caught. And it would have been a Santana deviation, as you can see here by the tag down at the bottom in the graph. So these are allowed to run automatically and generate these tags for us. We then take that data and we can then report back. So in this particular group of days we're looking at here, if we were to go through it, they actually did quite well on the Santana departure with only one. And we could present it in percentages, whatever you'd like. We're actually working on creating a Power BI worksheet, dashboard, whatever you call it, so you can see that better. But that was one of our first ones we did. Another one would be the early turns over Foster City. We're trying to make sure that we're not turning, you can just see this faint blue line here with an arrow coming out of it. That's been with us for a long, long time now. We've used that to monitor early turns. Any aircraft that comes and clips the corner of it down here, which these two have, are considered early turns, and they're actually caught in the tagging down here on the spreadsheet you see. And so our goal is to get that to 100%. Daytime, really hard. Nighttime, we can do quite well. So that's that one. The next one would be our Woodside Gate Crossing. The three-letter identifier for the Woodside VORTAC, which is a navigation beacon out there in Woodside, is OSI, and that's the reason it's called OSI in our reporting. And the flights are coming in Trans-Pacific. They are using the star called the Pirate, and we're looking for those that are at 7,700 feet and above to be good. Anything below that is a fail, and we'll get less points or however we want to do it as far as the scoring goes. The stick penetration. So on this one, I was really happy to see, first one that we ran where we had 0 aircraft below the 2,000 foot at this gate here that you can see offshore, just at the shoreline. Everybody was at 2,000 feet or above. Now, one way we can turn up the heat a little bit, and we can only go so much with it, is to raise the altitude a little bit, see if we can get airlines to do better on that one. Next one is gap vectoring. We don't have a whole lot of gap vectoring. Most of this is not airlines unless the air traffic controller is involved. It'll involve us as the noise office working on it to look at and listen to air traffic control to see if air traffic control gave them the direction to turn left or if the pilot requested it. If they just did it, most of the turns like this are business jets. And we already have understanding with the tower in Northern California, TRACON, that they will do that to get the smaller aircraft out of the way of the larger aircraft going straight out. Understood. But these two on this particular set of days were airlines. And so those, we need to go meet with them. We had one that was a 737-800. Another one was an Airbus A320. And so that would warrant more investigation. The offset approaches, you've already seen most of this. We had it involved with the weather. We had it involved with runway closures. And we're looking for anybody that can do the offset approach, which is offshore here. And those are ones that, shut it down, are going to present quite well for us. And yes. So we're looking ones that can fly the offset approach, not straight in, not come across Foster City. That makes it much quieter for the folks in Foster City and Redwood Shores. So we like to see that at night. We like to see it any time of day, but the air traffic controllers have said that they can do it at night when traffic is lighter. We've been scoring it between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. And we're looking for at least 35%. The tough one is the weather and runway closures. So if we have runway 28 left or 28 right, closed, particularly 28 right, closed for maintenance, closed for rubber removal, anything like that, they have to go to the left, and odds are they're going to be a straight-in approach, not an offset. Some will be, but not many. And so you can see this complex, convoluted mess of gates that we have down here. So the arrows indicate which the direction of flight is as they go through the gates, and we're trying to make sure that we're staying out here, offshore, coming through this one, to be good, and those would be the basis for our scoring. The other point is going to be a verbal one because it was an idea and not really a query or anything like that. But we would invite the airlines to come. We would invite the airlines to make a presentation, discuss procedures and how the airline flies them, discuss how the aircraft flies a given approach, things like that. They then would score full points on participation. If they just come to the meeting, they would get partial points. So they, I don't know, if you want to give them, say, out of 6 meetings a year, 2 points per attendance, okay. And if they do a presentation, give them 5 or 10, whatever you'd like to do. I think that would be a fantastic way to do it. I would say cap it, maybe make it 12-point cap so that they don't just go run away with everything by having somebody at the meeting or attending online. That's up to you.
So I noticed in your presentation that some of the procedures are scored during certain hours and some are scored other hours. I heard you mention on the offset from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., whereas the Brisbane shoreline, sorry, I have a hard time.
Oh, the stick?
The stick was from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Stick is open-ended. We don't have a cap on that one for hours.
Well,
Now,
one
as
of
far
them-
as the night, it's run between 1 and 5.
1 and 5.
Yeah.
And
So-
why is it that, is it because of the procedure itself? That
Yes.
that you can't do it outside of the other hours?
It is.
Some you can do at all hours.
True. There are only so many hours of the day that air traffic controllers have the latitude to work all the air traffic that they need to over the bay. And so with that, we have to bargain with them on what we can do, what is feasible, and what they're able to get their staff to do. Their staff will come back and say, we can't do that. That is just impossible. We're talking to the airplanes all the time. They don't want to talk to the airplanes all the time. They would rather launch the aircraft, hand them off to Northern California TRACON from the tower, which is almost immediate, oftentimes before they leave the airport property. Once NCT gets them, they would like to talk to them, 1 or 2 controllers as they're handing them off through the airspace, and they're done. Because they have given them a procedure, and then as they get to the next sector, an air traffic controller, as you're looking at these, you can see down towards the bottom of the screen, some of them are starting to turn left for themselves, right for us here as we're looking at it. Others continue straight down. And so the ones that are continuing straight down are left to go based on what they were assigned. The other ones that are turning were given a vector by an air traffic controller.
Okay. And then on the Santana utilization, what are the hours for that one?
Santana, we're looking for that one all the time. It's getting further away from SFO. It should be easier to do. And so I don't see why we shouldn't run that one all the time.
So San Francisco gets the full ride all the time.
Well, as does Brisbane with the stick. Because that 2,000 foot, and by the way, they scored very well on that one. The other ones we are working on right now, still haven't gotten them to the point where we're really ready to show them, but we're definitely baked on them, is a continuous descent approach for the surfer arrivals, looking to see who can maintain a continuous descent. We would be able to run that one all the time. We might be chunking it up based on hours of the day, because there are certain times where that thing is just hammered. It's just one after the other. And then it would be nice to be able to say, we had a good period here, we had a poor period here, and out of this poor period, here's areas of concentration that we need to focus on. It's one thing to have good. We can say that's good, and we put it on the shelf as good. I want to focus on the poor where we can make them good.
And then on the stick gate penetrations, again, going back to those flights, you said that there was a possibility to put the gate height a little higher.
We
so
may
that
be
we
able to.
can try
The chartered procedure does call out 2,000 feet before they come back over the shoreline. And so that's the reason we use that. So what we would do is grab the data from this that we have now, and since it's a gate, as I showed you earlier with the scatter graph, we could see how well they're doing. And we could say, well, we're going to look at these guys based on 2,200 feet, something like that, and keep it there for a while and see if we can get them to do a little bit better.
I mean, of course, that's the gate, that's the departure that really affects my community, which is why I'm sort of focused on it. But, you know, with the asking for vectoring and asking for, and them giving early turns. And we know that they do that if they're asked if it's possible, they just do it. So I'd love to see our scoring system try to get the planes a little higher. I also would like to see if we could give points for not requesting the vector, so that we can see who's really asking for it, and when they're asking for it every time, that's going to show a willingness to work on noise issues by not asking for that early turn.
Okay.
And I don't know how that correlates to what you would have to do to find out, but I think
It correlates
that-
to a ton of work.
a ton of work.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is we would have to listen to every radio call. Our goal with this was to make it as automated as possible so that we could stay hands-off. There are only 3 people in my office, myself and 2 others. And listening to each and every one of these, in addition to listening to our Title 21 noise monitoring sites, it's going to be a pretty big burden. We're going to be fortunate here soon that we're going to be able to bring some interns in, and that'll help us out, and that'll increase our ability to do some work. But they're through May right now, so we'll have to see what we can pull.
Anyone else have questions for Bert on this section?
I do. This is sort of a more general question, if you will. How cognizant do you think, I mean, I appreciate the scoring system, and it's very detailed, and it's obviously gives us lots of data back. How much do you think a pilot is thinking about that? Or are they worried about turbulence, and I'm behind schedule, and I've got a million other things going on right now, and we left the gate late, and all those other things, versus, gee, if I don't ask for a vector, I get a point. I mean, what do you think the relative weight of those are for a
They left the
pilot?
gate late, they're going to ask for a vector. I mean, it's just kind of de rigueur. You know, your pilot, I'm sure you've heard the briefings. If you listen to them, oftentimes a pilot will say, we're going to try and make up time en route. Well, one of the ways they do that is by asking for visuals, asking for straight ins, asking for vectors, you know, whatever they can do. But on the flip side of that, this time of year, they're asking to avoid the rough weather. They're asking for a smooth ride. So they don't mind, if they have to, going out of the way. It's rough on them too. I'm a pilot myself, and nobody likes to fly through really rough weather. And so it's a give and take. There are also certain pilots that just, I'm a bus driver, I want to get there. Most of them are not. Most of them do factor in what's going on. Most of them do factor in where they're going, what their schedule is, whether they're behind, whether they have weather. All those things factor in for them. Most of it's already been thought about before you left the gate, because they go in and they get their briefing materials on the weather, the flight plan, all that factors into it. And then they come out after making any fine tuning that they need to do, last minute fuel requests if they want a little more, a little less, those types of things.
So you just brought up fuel, which I have to imagine is another big issue. That's the huge expense that they're always trying to cut down on. You mentioned just 25 miles in that routing around the city would be a big deal. So for that reason, we talked about this a month or two ago, that procedure that goes out over the bay, 505, is that it, or something like that?
Oh, 050.
050, sorry, I was close.
No problem.
The one that goes out over the bay, which is the win-win because they save time, fuel, and it's quiet.
Mhm.
Why can't we get that with a higher utilization? I know that you do it by lobbying, by verbal efforts and trying to do it, but I mean, it just seems like if everybody likes that one, we do, the towns do, the cities do.
My understanding is they can give it as a vector, but we were warned not to go try to get it officially charted.
Why do you think? Seems odd to me because
I'd
everybody
love
likes
to
it.
talk with you more about it
Okay,
offline.
all right, fair enough.
Please.
So thank you, Bert. I think this idea of inviting the airlines to come to the roundtable, I mean, what we want to know is how can we help? So we meet 6 times a year, inviting the airlines to come and giving them points to attend and points to present. I think we'd all be interested in developing these relationships and making it as positive as possible. And how often could we recognize airlines? I mean, these awards incentivize good practices, I think. Everybody responds to the carrot. We don't really have much of a stick. But what do you recommend, or what should we do? Could we give an award for something at every meeting 6 times a year? Or do we do a 1 time a year big deal? How can we help make this a very visible award program that airlines want to win?
Well, we started out years ago. Back then, the Roundtable did have a public relations person, and Don Shoecraft was his name, and he went ahead and put it out to the media. Well, I guess, as often as we did it, they kind of let it go down a bit. I'm watching other airports these days with their Fly Quiet programs. Most of them do have some sort of PR that they get it out in the media. Others actually will print a sign and then allow the airlines to put that in the airport or put that in some sort of publication. And then they are able to toot their own horn, say, look, for the 3rd year running, we have achieved the quietest airline here at SFO. We've achieved the most improved, whatever it is. And so all those are grand things for an airline to be able to do. I can't tell you how many times I brought the Lucite trophies to an airline if they couldn't attend here to accept it, and they would want a picture session. So it's one of those things, depending on what you want to do with it. I've sent Vanessa a few of the airports' Fly Quiet programs and their awards and whatnot, and so we can look through, see what we like, or maybe cook up our own again.
So
Yeah.
can
Go
I
ahead,
just hop
Vanessa.
in and offer that? I think it's part of our approach to taking the Fly Quiet program in sections. After we get through the scoring and these new procedures with Bert, we are planning at another TWG meeting to talk specifically about marketing and incentives for the program once we nail down everything that we want included in it. So that is scheduled for the roundtable to talk about and kind of weigh in on, because I think for the last couple of years, Bert, you can let me know, there haven't been any awards given. I think COVID and then there, turnover and new me coming on board, so I think the plan is for us to do a deep dive into that later. And Bert has been sending me some of the press releases and kind of the cool ways that other airports have been marketing and identifying people who have won the program. So, and I just wanted to, Bert, if you could quickly clarify, so these 5 procedures that you're presenting today, have they already been put into place in the program, or are these are ideas and concepts that SFO is considering?
These are tested ideas and concepts. We haven't put them through the final dashboards or online. Our thinking was that if the roundtable liked them, great. We could take the current Fly Quiet program and add, remove, take out what you liked, didn't like, and add what you like. Go forward that direction. And any of these that we've been cooking up, we've spent enough time and money on them that we would probably like to put them on our website if the roundtable didn't want to put them in the Fly Quiet program.
My last question, do you have some ideas on how we could also work with the tower, recognize their work? I mean, they're particularly besieged right now, I think, nationally, but because a lot of these procedures, if I understand it, the pilots have to ask the tower permission, is that right? So are there ways that we could recognize the tower, thank the tower, give them some love as well?
Could. One of the biggest ones is the nighttime runway 10 departure. It's oftentimes difficult because there's the issue of what they call ODO, opposite direction operations. So if we have an aircraft lined up on runway 10 over here near South San Francisco facing east, and we have another aircraft on arrival, they have to make sure that there's at least 25 miles there. So there can be a long wait. And if they have another one coming behind, it keeps going. So the air traffic controllers have told aircraft in the past that I'm familiar with, you may have to wait 45 minutes for a 10 departure. A lot of times the airlines are like, no thanks, we'll take what you're giving out. So it's up to you.
Thanks for the great report, Bert. I have a quick question for you regarding these violations that we were talking about beforehand. You had mentioned that to save time for some of these operators, they choose to take these violations. How much time are they saving by taking said violation and doing these alternate routes?
Varies. So in other words, if they want to score real well on the preferential runway use, take a runway 10 departure, wait 45 minutes for that, they're going to lose 45 minutes, but they'll score well. If they're already running behind, then it adds that. I know the carriers don't want to see that. And also the people on board don't want to sit there for an extra 45 plus minutes. Now, having said all that, it's usually a handful of minutes. I mean, 10, 15, most is a typical.
Okay, thank you.
So what you're looking for from us as feedback at this point is to have a collaboration on what we want and what we vision being helpful to the program that you'll be operating for with the data and all that, and to get a partnership type program
Oh,
into
yes.
the Fly Quiet?
We're definitely in a partnership.
Okay.
That's the way the first Fly Quiet was created. And, the other thing I didn't mention is you all have, most of you have seen the standard operating procedure for Northern California TRACON. What they're supposed to do, traffic permitting, air traffic controllers shall. These are those verbiage. Offset, staying 6 miles before lining up on the runway, preferential runways, all those things.
Okay. I think, Ann, did you have a comment you'd like to make? Please.
We do have another public comment online also, if you're ready to call for,
I'm
if you're
sorry.
ready to call for public comments, we have one more online also.
Well, I think that the technical working group should be a little bit more relaxed as far as allowing people to speak, so.
Thank you, Ann Schneider. The Fly Quiet report is great, mainly for arrivals and for some of the taller departures. It doesn't mean a thing to the close-in communities. Part of the things that you could ask for are runway preferences. I mean, Bert used an example of how long it might take to use a 10 if 28 is coming in. Well, is that during the day, is that during the evening, or is that during at night? If we're talking about at night, if some of the runway 1 departures could use a 10 departure because there isn't much coming in on 28, that could be a significant increase in quiet, the ability to sleep in Millbrae. Anytime you use a runway 1 departure, it's hellacious for Millbrae, especially at night. And it's not because the leaf blowers aren't blowing, it simply is louder on that. So the Fly Quiet report has never served the close-in communities. I will say if you go to prime time, I think a couple of you go to prime time in Burlingame, the 28 departures can be incredibly loud if you're swimming there. And now Burlingame has added apartments there. So, but they're newcomers. We predate the airport here. When I look at these, it's as if this airport ignores the go-arounds, of which there are many more go-arounds right now, because I see them, they fly right over my house. The frequency of reverse flow, it used to be bad weather, now it's being used more often. There's no information that comes to this roundtable about them. Now, if you average them out over 365 days, yeah, you can say they're a blip, but they're not a blip. Thursday, there was a Tuesday and a Thursday and a Wednesday in October that was all day long on that. None of that data shows in that. Why are they happening? Do they have to happen? None of that information comes through. And then, again, from a ground-based work plan, in the Fly Quiet report, why are the cargo planes not being highlighted? We simply accept that they work at night. Well, that's great when you're SFO because you've got you're getting the sales tax for it, but we're getting the noise on that. So what's happening between 10 and 7 a.m. and breaking that data down, and then the data between that other window that this roundtable worked on between 1 a.m. and 5 p.m. But reverse flow, go-arounds, the aircraft used to get measured for how quiet they've gotten once they're in the air, and for that device, that little vector device that went on the wings, Bert. That used to be a measure of how quiet the aircraft themselves are. Yet they've never been held accountable, not Boeing, not any of the other engine manufacturers, to reducing the sound, the low frequency sound on that. So this roundtable could be saying, let's start tracking the low frequency noise, which is the biggest part of departure noise. So that's the detail if the working group is going to get into ground-based noise and look at it from a low frequency or a ground-based perspective. That's why this committee needs to meet and go into that level of detail. Can you get the jet engine manufacturers to finally start getting points from the various environmental entities at the federal level for reducing low frequency noise? They've not done it. They do the easy way. When you're trying to get rid of pollution, you go after the easy stuff. That's high frequency. Go after the low frequency. There's a lot more in here, but in 3 minutes you really can't do it. But really, any stoppage or changing of using runway 1 left or right, but I'm thinking it's probably more where I live, runway 1 left, from the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. to a 28 departure would help Millbrae. It would be more difficult for the people living in Rollins Road. That would be the trade-off there. But we pre-exist them. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like you have 2 public comments online, 2 more speakers. Darlene is the first one.
Yes, Ms. Yapley, please go ahead.
Thank you for having multiple meetings on the Fly Quiet program and good work on proposing gates to monitor procedures. An important aim moving forward is to ensure that highly impacted member cities for both arrivals and departures have appropriate representation. The word procedure should also include vectoring because some communities are highly impacted because of vectoring and flight concentration due to narrow flying corridors or multiple procedures overflying the same communities. Deviation of procedures works for departures. However, because SFO arrivals are vectored, starting miles away from the airport, you can't look at the procedure deviations alone, but you can look at altitudes and flight patterns to identify potential differences among carriers. Therefore, to ensure equitable representation and coverage of impacted communities, please consider adding the following 3 categories. 1, a gate over East Palo Alto and Menlo Park to understand carrier differences in altitudes for the 3 SFO arrival routes. 2nd, 2 bodega gates to detect differences between airlines or time of day and night. Such data would be critical in potential discussions with the airlines and ATC. 1 peninsula gate to capture bodega arrivals that affect many Roundtable cities such as Redwood City, Menlo Park, and East Palo Alto. A good gate location would be where most bodega arrivals make their U-turn. The 2nd bodega is down the bay to track aircraft that remain over the bay, thus preventing noise impacts over peninsula cities. Yes, over the bay, not over communities. And the 3rd is night hush tracking. One more suggestion is for each gate that we've all seen, list the cities that are within 2 miles of the gate so that Roundtable members and their communities understand the relevance. They can look at the gate proposed or that's in place and know if it includes them or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you. And the last speaker on Zoom is Ms. Mary Jo Fremont. Ms. Fremont, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. Adding the tracking of deviations and carrier patterns to the Flag Quiet program is great progress. Some other things also need to be considered, such as 1, adding categories for ground-based noise, such as engine run-ups. 2, separating the daytime from the nighttime periods because there is much more flexibility at night when traffic is low. 3, considering the continuous descent all the way to the ILS for the arrival. And 4, distinguishing ATC decisions and pilot requests in order to determine the next steps in seeking improvement. For example, who decides the runway at what time? The pilot request or does ATC assign? And by the way, AI may help make that distinction instead of listening to all the tapes. In addition, items in the 3 program should be looked at to understand whether they should remain in the program or be modified, especially in the context of new categories. For example, the fleet noise quality rating. This reflects the age of the fleet, and specifically the engines. Yes, newer engines are quieter, which is great for departures, but does nothing for arrival. If this category remains in the program, then it needs to be balanced with a category for airframe noise, for example, on the same arrival route, with the same aircraft type. Some carriers tend to deploy their flaps sooner than others, and that should be counted. Another example, the noise exceedance rating. Given that the engines are quieter, the single event maximum noise level limits at each monitoring site should be adjusted downwards. And by the way, an absolute noise level, experience level, does not take into account the ambient noise level at that noise monitoring site, which does matter a lot. Thank you for considering these suggestions and great progress overall.
Thank you. There are no other speakers.
No, thank you. So I think that trying to figure out a metric for adding the ground noise, the run-ups and the engine run-ups and things of that nature is a good thing that we can try to get in. And I'm glad that a couple of our speakers also brought up the vectoring, because I know it's going to be difficult to get something like that into the Fly Quiet program, but I think it's really important to look at those parameters and see if there's a way we can capture those events where, you know, pilots, the airlines are asking. And I don't know how we would do that without putting burden of view listening to every flight, Bert, or your office listening to every flight, but it might be something that we might need to do it more as the carrot and part of our awareness program that we do with the airlines, where they probably know we can't monitor every request for a vector or know why a deviation was granted, but that we're trying to look at. And I'm not sure how we'd work that into a program.
Well, AI was mentioned. There are some programs that you can use to scour air traffic control audio. We can experiment with that. And right now, like I said, it's very cutting edge. We can give it a try and report back. I mean, it's a work in progress, is the best way to put it.
AI seems like a natural place to, I mean, it's so labor intensive, there's no way you could listen to all of that and process it. But doesn't that have to be validated? Or can you just use it for a purpose like this?
We would basically, like I said, I forget the name of the software. There are a couple places trying it, Braintree or something like that. Anyway, what you do is you allow it to go through the audio recordings, pick out certain words, and if you're able to do that, fine-tune it over time, you probably can get there. But like I said, it's going to be definitely a trial and error thing until we get there.
Just real quick comment to piggyback on that. You know, based off your earlier comments tonight, it seemed that staffing was the main key issue as to why we can't listen to all these flights. And based off what you're saying, this sounds like a perfect use case for AI. My recommendation would be to look at what vendors are out there, make a short list of 3, and then potentially get into a pilot program with them where AI could listen to those audio logs as they're coming, as they're happening, and then identify what those flights are. I think that'd be a great.
We have
great
our
project.
Airport Operations Center, AIOC, and they are using this brain software I mentioned to scour for go-arounds. And they've had a lot of good luck with it. So I think since we already have a subscription for that, I will be investigating that one if you don't mind.
Now, I would think that that wouldn't be such a big lift if you guys are already going with a vendor. So, I mean, is there an ETA when you think you might be able to pursue something like that? Another quarter or two, or?
Let me see what I can do with our interns coming in. We have 2 that I know of that are pretty sharp cookies. Been around the bush as far as airport operations go. It's not like we're getting fresh out of college intern or in college intern. These would be people that have been out in the industry for a little bit. We can use them.
Thanks, Bert.
I have one more.
press, okay. Bert, would you, since these are criteria that you're just presenting for the first time to us, would it be all right to just allow us to have an opportunity to possibly add some additions to it over the next month as we
That's what
study it?
this working relationship's about. I mean, you guys will probably think of things that we didn't. And so that's what we're looking for. You
Great.
guys to put things on the table and we sit down and say, yes, we can do that, or don't know.
Okay.
Come
Thank
back
you.
with a report.
Great.
Can I just hop in and just maybe to close off this presentation before we go to the full roundtable meeting? So the initial intro, we are breaking the Fly Quiet program into separate TWG meetings. And so what we can do is, we have this information from Bert. I think now that it's been presented to the TWG members, there's time for all of you to come back, and at our next meeting, we'll have another segment of the Fly Quiet program, but this can also be agendized for our next meeting as well. So this is the first time that we're hearing it, and just so everyone knows, before there's any finalized tweaks to the program, it will go back to the full roundtable for the entire group to kind of weigh in and approve and give direction to Bert and his team before it's implemented into the actual program. So right now, we're just taking the program piece by piece and discussing every piece of it. These are 5 new procedures that could be considered, with the addition of some of the comments that we heard tonight. Bert's taking feedback, and then we'll come back to the full roundtable.
Great, well, thank you, and we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting and take a couple-minute break before we start the next one.